There once was a young man named Roland Pide who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a field and playing his recorder to rest a while from baking bagels when he suddenly spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. I think I need to warm up first before I just tell the story. Hamlin towns in Brunswick by famous Hanover City. The River Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you never spied. But when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses from the vats, and licked the soup from the cooks of the ladles. Split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nestmen Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning out their speaking with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayor is a naughty, and as for our corporation, shocking to think we buy gowns lined with ermine, for dolts who can't or won't determine what's best to rid us of our vermin. You hope because you're old and obese to find in the furry civic robes ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking, find the remedy we are lacking, for sure as fate will send you packing." At this the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council, at length the mayor broke silence. "For a guilder I'd my ermine gown sell, I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain, I'm sure my poor head aches again. I scratch it so, but all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap." Just as he said this, what should hap? At the chamber door but a gentle tap. "Bless us," cried the mayor, "what's that?" With the corporation as he sat, looking little through wondrous fat. Nor brighter were his eyes, nor moister than a too long opened oyster, save when at noon his paunch grew mutinous, for a plate of turtle green and glutinous. Only a scraping of shoes on a mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. "Come in," cried the mayor, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His long queer coat from heel to head was half yellow and half red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes each like a pin, and light loose hair and swarthy skin, nor tuft of hair on cheek nor beard on chin, but lips or smile went out and in. There was no guessing his kith or kin, and nobody could enough admire this tall man in his quaint attire. Quoth one, "It's as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone." He advanced towards the council table, and "Please, your honor," said he, "I am able, by means of secret charm to draw, all the creatures living beneath the sun, that crawl or swim or fly or run, after me so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper." And here they noticed round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe, to match with his coat of self-same check, and at the scarf's end hung a pipe, and his fingers they noticed were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon this pipe, as low it dangled over his vesture soled, fangled. "Yes," said he, "Pied Piper as I am, in Tartary I fred the camp, last June from his huge swarms of gnats. I eased in Asia the Nizam, the monsters brood of vampire bats. And as for what your brain bewilders, if I rid your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders?" 50,000 was the exclamation of an astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. Like a musical adaptable, his pipe, his lips he wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, you heard as if an army muttered, and the muttering grew to a grumbling, and the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses came the rats tumbling. Great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, grey rats, tawny rats, grave old potters, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, followed the piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished, save one who stout as Julius Caesar, swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to Ratland home his commentary, which was, at first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard a sound as of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe into the cider presses gripe, and moving away a pickle tub boards, and leaving a jar of conserve cupboards, and drawing the corks of train oil flasks, and breaking loops of butter casks, and it seemed as if a voice, sweeter far than by harp or by psalteries breathed, called out, "Oh, rats, rejoice! The world has grown to a vast dry saltery. So munch on, crunch on, take your nunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, lunch on, and just how bulky sugar punch on, already staved like a great sun shone. Gracious scarce an inch before me, just as methought it said, come bore me, I found the Weser rolling over me. You should have heard the Hamlin people ring the bells so they rocked the steeple. Go, cried the mayor, and get long poles, poke out the nests and block up the holes, consult with carpenters and builders, leave in our town not even a trace of the rats. When suddenly up the face of the piper perked in the marketplace, the first, if you please, my 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders. The mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too, for council dinners made rare havoc with claret, moselle, vin de gras, pot, and half the money would replenish their cellar's biggest butt of Rhenish, to pay this sum to a wondering fellow, with gypsy coats of red and yellow. Besides, quoth the mayor with a knowing wink, our business is done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, whence men can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we're not folks to shrink from our duty of giving you something to drink, and a matter of money to put in your poke. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of them, as you well know, wasn't joke. Besides, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders, come take 50. The piper's face fell and he cried, no trifling, I can't wait beside. I promised a visit by dinner time, Baghdad, and accept the prime of the head cook's pottage. All he's rich in, for having left in the caliph's kitchen, of a nest of scorpions, no survivor. With him I prove no bargain driver. With you don't think I'll bait a stiver. And folks who put me in a passion may find me pipe after another fashion. How, cried the mayor, do you think I broke, being worse treated than a cook, insulted by a rival, with idle pipe and vesture piebald? Threaten us, fellow, do your worst, blow your pipe there till you burst. Once more he stepped into the street, to his lips again laid his long pipe of smooth straight cane, and ere he blew 3 notes, such sweet soft notes as yet musicians cunning never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling that seemed like a bustling of merry crowds justling and pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, and little tongues chattering. And like foals in a farmyard when barley is scattering, out came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flax and curls, and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, tripping and skipping around merrily after. The wonderful music was shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood as if they're changed into blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry to the children merrily skipping by. Could only follow with an eye that joyous crowd at the piper's back, and how the mayor was on the rack, and the wretched council's bosoms beat as the piper turned from the high street to where the West rolled its waters, right in the way of their sons and daughters. However, he turned from south to west, to Copperbrick Hill his steps addressed, and after him the children pressed. Great was the joy in every breast. He never crossed the mighty top, he's forced to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed. The piper advanced, and the children followed. And when all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was lame, and could not dance the whole of the way. And in after years, if you'd blame his sadness, he was used to say, it is dull in our town since my playmates left, I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me. For he led us, he said, to a joyous land, joining the town in just at hand, where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers were forth a fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrow had buried a peacock here, and the dogs outran a fellow deer, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagle's wings. And just as I became assured, my lame foot would be speedily cured, the music stopped, and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left behind against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more. Alas, alas for Hamelin, there came into many a burgher's pate a text which says that heaven's gate opes the rich at as easy rate as a needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, and south to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever it was men's lot to find him, silver and gold to his heart's content, if only he'd return the way he went and bring the children behind him. But when they saw 'twas lost endeavor, and piper and dances were gone forever, they made a decree that lawyers never should think their records dated duly, if after the day of the month and year these words do not as well appear. And so long after what happened here, on the 22nd of July, 1376, and the better in memory to fix the place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper Street, where anyone playing pipe or tabor was sure for his future to lose his labor, nor suffered they hostelry or tavern, shocked with mirth a street so solemn, and opposite the place of the cavern, they wrote the story on a column, and on great church window painted, the same to make the world acquainted how their children were stolen away, and there it stands this very day. And I must not admit to say that in Transylvania there is a tribe of alien people who ascribe the way and dress of which their neighbors lay such stress to their fathers and mothers having risen of some subterranean prison into which they were japanned a long time ago in a mighty band out of Hamlin towns and Brunswick land, but how or why they don't understand. So, Lily, let me and you be wipers of scores out with old men, especially pipers. And if they should pipe us free from rats or from mice, if we promise them aught, let us keep our promise. Oh my God, come on. Turn it off. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, askance to watch the working of his lie on mine, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that pursed and scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be set for with his staff? What saved a waylay with his lies and snare all travelers who might find him posted there? And asked the road, I guessed what skull-like laugh would break, what crutch could write my epitaph of pastime in the dusty thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside into ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly I did turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end described, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes the farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, draw breath freely outside, since all is over he saith, and the blow fallen no grieving can amend. While some discuss if near other graves be room enough for this, but when a day suits best for carrying the corpse away, with caribou banners, scarfs, and staves, and still the man hears all and only craves, who may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I had for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so oft been writ, so many times among the band to wit, the knights who true dark tower search address their steps, that just to fail as they seem best, and old doubt was now should I be fit. So quiet as despair I turned from him, that hateful cripple, out of his highway into the path he pointed. All the day had been a dreary one at best, and dim was settling into its close, yet shot one grim red leer to see the plain catch its grey. For mark, no sooner was I fairly found, pledged to the plain after a pace or two, and pause and throw backward the last few, over the safe road 'twas gone, grey plain all round, nothing but plain to the horizon's bound. I must go on, naught else remained to do. So on I went. I think I never saw such starved and global nature. Nothing throve, for flowers as well expect a cedar grove, but chortle and spurge according to their law, might propagate their kind with none to awe. You'd think a burr had been a treasure trove. No penry inert to sing grimace in some strange sort were the land's portion. See or close your eyes, said nature peevishly. In nothing skills, I can't help my case. 'Tis last judgment's fire must cure this place. Calcine its clods and set my prisoners free. If there pushed any ragged thistle stalk above its mates, its head was chopped. The bents were jealous else. What made the holes and rents in the dog's harsh swarth leaves, bruised as to balk all hope of greenness. 'Tis a brute must watch, passion their life with brute's intents. As for the grass, it grew as scarce as hair in leprosy. Thin, dry blades pricked the mud which underneath looked kneaded up with blood. One stiff, blind corpse, as every bone to stare, stood stupefied however he came there, thrust out past service from the devil's stud. Alive, he might be dead for aught I know, with red gaunt and callop neck astrain, and shut eyes beneath the rusty mane. Seldom went such grotesqueness with such woe. I never saw a brute I hated so. He must have been wicked to deserve such pain. I shut my eyes and turned them on my heart, as a man calls for wine before he fights. I asked one draught of earlier, happier sights, ere fitly I could hope to play the part. Think first, fight afterwards, the soldier's art. One taste of old time sets all to rights. Not it. I fancied Cuthbert's reddening face beneath its garniture of curly gold. Dear fellow, till I almost felt him fold an arm in mine to fix me to the place. That way he used, alas, one night's disgrace. Oh, at my heart's in fire and left me cold. Giles, then, the soul of honor, there he stands, frank as 10 years ago when knighted first. An honest man should dare, he said he durst. Good, but the scene shifts. Faw, what hangman's hand pinned to his breast a parchment. His own band reads it. Poor traitor, spit upon and cursed. Better this present than a past like that. Back therefore to my darkening path. No sound, no sight as far as the eye can strain. Will the night send a howlet or a bat, I asked, when something on the dismal flat came to arrest my thoughts and change their train. A sudden little river crossed my path, as unexpected as a serpent came. No tides congenial to the glooms. This as it frothed by might have been a bath for the fiend's glowing hoof, to see the wrath of its black eddies be spat with flakes and spoons. So petty yet so spiteful, all along low scrubby alders kneeled over it. Drenched willows flung them headlong in a fit of rout despair. A suicidal throng, the river which had done them all wrong, whatever that was, rolled by, deterred no whit. Which while I forded, good saints, how I feared to set my foot upon a dead man's cheek. Each step or field the spear I thrust to seek, for follows tangled in his hair or beard. It may have been a water rat I speared, but it sounded like a baby's shriek. Glad was I to reach other bank, now for a better country, vain presage. Who were the strugglers? What war did they wage? Whose savage trample could thus pad the dank soil to a plash? Toads in a poisoned tank, or wild cats in a red-hot cage. Fight must so have seemed in that foul cirque. What penned them there with all the plain to choose? No footsteps leading to that horrid muse. None out of it. Mad druids set to work their brains, no doubt. Like galley slaves, a Turk pits for his pastime Christians against Jews. And more than that, a furlong on, why there, what bad use was that engine for? That wheel or brake, not real, that harrow fit to reel men's bodies out like silk, with all the air of Tophet's tool, on earth left unaware or brought to sharpen its rusty teeth of steel. Then came some stub gun, once a wood, next to Marcia would seem, now mere earth, desperate and done with, so the fool finds mirth, makes a thing and mars it, till his mood changes and off he goes. Within a rude bog clay and marsh, sand and stark black dirt. Now blotches rankling colored gay and grim, now patches where some leanness of the soil broke into moss or substances like boils. Then came a palsied oak, a cleft in him, a distorted mouth that splits its rim, gaping at death and dies while it toils. As far as ever from the end, not to the distant, but the evening not, point my footsteps further at the thought, great black bird, Apollyon's bosom's friend, sailed past or beat his wide winged dragon pen, that brushed my cap, perchance the guide I sought. For looking up where I somehow grew, the plain given place all round the mountains with such names to grace mere heights and heaps now stolen in view, how thus they surprised me solving you, how to get from there was no clear case. Yet half I seemed to recognize some trick of mischief had happened to me, God knows when, in a bad dream perhaps. Here ended then progress this way, when in the very nick of giving up one more time came a click, as when the trap shuts you're in the den. Burningly it came upon me all at once, this was the place, those two hills crouched like two wolves locked horn in fight, while to the left the tall scout mountain, Dun's daughter dozing at the very nunts, after a lifetime of training for the sight. What in the midst lay but the tower itself, the round squat turret, blind as a fool's heart, built of brown stone without a counterpart in the whole world. The tempest's mocking elf points to the ship and thus the unseen shelf. He strikes on only when timbers start. Not see, because of night perhaps, why day came back for that. Behind it left the dying sunset, kindled through a cleft. The hills like two giants in the hunting lay, chin upon hand to see the game at bay. Now stab and end the creature to the heft. Not here, because of night perhaps, not here when noise was everywhere, it told, beating like a bell, names in my ears, of lost adventurers my peers. How such was strong and such was bold, and such was fortunate, yet each of old, lost one moment, now the woe of years. There they stood, ranged along the hillside met, to view the last of me, a living frame, for one more pictured a sheet of flame. I saw them and knew them all, and yet, dauntless, a slug one to my lips I set and blew. Child Roland to a dark tower came. There was once a young man named Roland Pye who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder to rest a while from all his baking, when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead body in stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed that day. From that day on, Roland was the happiest baker alive. He would bake until he was tired. Then he would pull his recorder out of his pocket while his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pye lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland. In the beginning, he said that Roland was a good worker but lazy. Next, he said that Roland baked a whole lot but badly. Then he accused Roland of being a sorcerer, and the people turned on him. Roland Pye therefore took his recorder and left his home behind. When Roland came to a neighboring town, he went to all the business owners, but none of them would give him any work. Finally, he met an old busker and asked him for work to keep his body and soul together. "Come along with me," said the old man, "and we will share alms." So Roland Pye and the old man started going around and singing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to clean. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, stand where your feet are." Everybody gave alms to the old man, but to Roland Pye they said, "What is a young man like you out begging? Why don't you work for a living?" "Nobody will hire me," replied Roland Pye. "That's what you say. There's a king with so many hungry soldiers that he'll pay good wages to anyone willing to feed them." So Roland Pye went to the king's kitchen and took the old man he'd been sharing alms. It took the old man whose alms he'd been sharing. The oven had never been used before. Roland mixed the dough, rolled it into rings. Then he boiled it, dressed it with seeds. Then he baked it until it was golden brown. Then he tossed them into a crate to cool down. Whenever he wearied of baking, he would play his recorder. And once he became weary of playing his recorder, he would sing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to preen. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms." Baker, be who you are. Hearing the singing, a princess looked out the window. She saw Roland pied and fell in love with him. But she was a princess, and he a baker. The king would never consent to their marriage. So they decided to run away together. They fled at night in a boat. When they were already on the high seas, Roland remembered the busker. He said to his beloved, "We must fetch the old man, since he shared alms with me. We can't go off and leave him like that." At that very moment, the old man came up behind them, walking on the water as though it had been dry land. Reaching the boat, he said, "We agreed to divide everything we had, and I shared everything I owned. Now you have the king's daughter and must give half of her to me." At that, he gave Roland Pied a knife to cut his bride in half. Roland Pied took the knife with a trembling hand. He said, "You are right," he said. "You are perfectly right." He was at the point of cutting his bride in two, when suddenly the old man stopped him. "Stop! I knew you were a just man. I am the dead body, mind you, whom you covered with stones. Go now, and may the two of you always be happy." The old man walked away on the waves, and the boat came to an island rich with all good things, with a princely palace awaiting the newlyweds. The end. That was Roland Pied in the Oven Blade. One day God said, "This is what I'll do. I'll send down my son, I'll send him down to you to clear up this humpity-bumpity hullabaloo. His name will be Christ, and he'll never wear shoes, and his friends will all call him the King of the Jews." He didn't come in a plane, he didn't come in a jeep. He didn't come in a pouch of a high-jumping goatee. He rode on the back of a black Saskatoon, the blackiest creature you ever could view. He rode into Jerusalem, home of the grumpy Jews, where false prophets were worshipped, some even in twos. There's Murray von Murr and Dangus Vovooz, the one you could worship taking a snooze. Christ spoke from a mound as a pile of ground, and people gathered around without making a frown. Thus he spake, "Sin in socks full of sin, how shall we quiet this Jehovah din? Do unto others as others do unto you." That includes you, Timothy Foo. One Pharisee said to another he knew, "What shall we do about this uppity Jew? Wash him in wine and make him all clean, and into Sam Vidal's crucifixion machine. Twirl the girl and release the gavlees, and in go the nails as fast as he please." And he said as he bled, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, because they walk through this world wearing two crappity shoes." Amen.
Mm.